everybody. Welcome to the world's greatest podcast. This is Slam, where we talk about every single DC superhero ever. I'm your co-host, Mike Ellen, as always, been joined by
Joshua Mervell, and today we're going to be taking a look at the origin of the Star-Spangled Kid and S.T.R.I.P.E. or S.T.R.I.P.E. And also kind of like a bit of a spin-off of that character and kind of their reboot, years later down on the line.
Stargirl, yeah.
Stargirl, that's right.
Yeah, the connection is it's still a little bit murky for me. Again, we'll get to how it works out later. But we're going to be reviewing Star-Spangled Comics #1 as well as Stars and Stripe #1.
Okay.
Which is the first appearance of the Star-Spangled Kid who later became Stargirl. So first I have to ask you, did you ever hear of the Star-Spangled Kid before this episode?
I had heard of that character, but I don't think I knew anything about them. I definitely didn't know that he had a sidekick. And I think maybe I only really knew about this character because of the fact that Stargirl, connected to Stargirl. So, not much.
So here's the thing. I mean, I know him mostly from reading a little bit, a few issues of Infinity Incorporated, All-Star Squadron, all that stuff. But he basically was a Golden Age character. He was in the Seven Soldiers of Victory. He kind of disappeared. He was brought back in, like I said, All-Star Squadron and the revival series like All-Star Comics featuring the Super Squad. And then again disappeared, and then was sort of, the idea was revived in the form of Stargirl, which we'll get to later. But this again is a Golden Age character, so we're talking about two people who have absolutely no superpowers. They're just good with the left hook. The only other notable thing about this crime-fighting team is that it's the only example where the sidekick is older than the main guy.
Yeah, it was really confusing.
Right. When
I first jumped into the first story, not knowing anything, I was like, that's so weird that the sidekick looks like an old man. And then, again, after reading, I was like, oh, okay, I get the idea behind it. But I didn't get that in this first issue that we're going to be talking about. But did the powers come from the belt?
So he didn't get the belt until like the 1990s, I think.
Gotcha.
No, sorry, the 80s. Or maybe it was the 70s, but I'm off by 30 years. But I think what happened was he was always depowered or unpowered. Then when they brought back, because what happened was All-Star Comics was canceled with, I believe, number 57.
Okay.
And then it became All-Star Western, okay? But then in the 1970s, DC brought back All-Star Comics and continued the original numbering. And instead of just calling it All-Star Comics, they gave it the confusing cover title of All-Star Comics starring the Justice Society featuring the Super Squad.
Ugh.
Yes, ridiculous. And the Super Squad was only 3 people. It was Star-Spangled Kid, Power Girl, and I want to say, Robin. Dick Grayson grown up as an adult. I think that was the Super Squad. But anyway, I think it was in that storyline, which was by Jerry Conway and Paul Levitz. That's where he started using the belt, I think. And the idea was, hey, Starman's not using it, so why don't I use it? Now, I personally, and I've got Tom DeFalco on my side, I do not like it when superheroes adopt the identity of other superheroes. And I certainly don't like it when superheroes just use each other's powers, only because it makes the characters less unique.
Right.
Like, to me, if anyone can use Iron Man's suit, why are there not 1,000 Iron Mans?
Mm-hmm.
It should be something that's unique to his, I don't know, his brainwave pattern or something. You know what I mean? Or to his physiology.
Right.
That makes it work, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I think in the most sense, but I do enjoy when they do kind of like the passing of the torch. Like in the sense of Stargirl, right? Where it does feel like a sequel or a continuation of the character and not just like another character taking on that persona or like taking things. Yeah.
I mean, I definitely like it for Earth 2. However, it's tricky because she's is it daughter of Stripe-E or
Stepdaughter.
niece, stepdaughter,
Yeah.
but she's taking on the identity of the Star-Spangled Kid.
Mm-hmm.
But the powers come from Starman. That's the part I don't like. That's the part I don't like.
Right.
But whatever. That's fine. That's fine. Okay, so how do you want to do this? Do you want to talk about this issue, or do you want to talk about Stars and Stripe? Because I can take this one if you want.
Oh yeah, sure.
Okay. All right. So, oh, by the way, we should mention if you're listening to this, be sure to watch the video edition of this podcast on our website, comicbooksyndicate.com, or on YouTube. And right now, as we're talking about it, you can actually follow along with the pages that we are talking about. And if you're having a hard time finding a copy of Star-Spangled Comics #1, this was reprinted in, I don't remember, but I'll look it up. Star-Spangled Comics #1, because the edition that we're looking at is kind of snazzy. It was reprinted in, oh, sorry guys, we're gonna edit this part out for everyone's sanity. Hold on here. It was reprinted in. It was not reprinted. I can't find anything. Okay. I don't know. I don't know where it was reprinted. But anyway, we got a reprint here, folks. Okay, anyway, wait just 1 second. I'm actually going to make a note just because I hate listening to that stuff, okay?
Sure, yeah.
1 second. Okay, hold on. I'll make a note and I'll send it to you so you have it. Okay, cool. All right, back. All right, so anyway, here we go. Star-Spangled Comics #1, coincidentally featuring the Star-Spangled Kid in his first appearance. So on the cover here, we've got this actually a pretty cool cover of the Star-Spangled Kid and Stripe-E fighting a giant robot and kind of like a Mr. Hyde type character. We should point out that there are actually two Star-Spangled Kid stories in this issue. This is not the only one. Yeah, pretty cool, eh?
Yeah.
So the first one's called the Bund Saboteurs, and the second one's called Dr. Weird and the Metal Monster, which I assume is where this cover scene's from, because we didn't read that story. We're only going to read the first one. So anyway, okay, so after a message from the editors, we jump into the story here. And this is a weird one, folks. I should mention it's written by Jerry Siegel, who co-created Superman. It starts in the middle of the action. Star-Spangled Kid is leaping off of the roof of a building into a crowd of toughs and just beating the crap out of them. Okay? And the running joke is that Stripe-E is kind of waiting to join him in action. And I don't know if this is like a kind of like a trope of this time period, but they make Stripe-E look pretty freaking weird.
Yeah.
Like with that big close-up of his face, he almost looks like a 1930s. Well, I mean, this is the 1930s or 40s, but like a gangster or just a weird-looking guy. Right?
Yeah, he looks terrifying.
Like a Joker smile and like an odd, like he's got red hair, like curly on top and shaved on the sides. It's kind of funky. But as he's trying to leap off the building to join the fray, his like underwear or whatever it is, they get stuck on this nail and he's kind of hanging up there, and it's like supposed to be like comic relief. So anyway, so we cut back over to the Star-Spangled Kid who's beating up these toughs, and meanwhile Stripe-E is still attached. He finally breaks free and jumps down, and of course Star-Spangled Kid has already cleaned house, so Stripe-E is not needed. Okay, so then we get another horrifying close-up.
Terrifying. Yeah.
It's going to scare me when I try to sleep tonight. And then he picks up one of the guys and throws him. He's kind of tossing him around and
trying to like wake him up so they can interrogate him. Yeah.
Right. They want to get some information out of him. And did they end up getting any information out of him? I don't think so.
Yeah, they wake him up and then he refuses. So then they start playing catch with the man and start tossing him back and forth. It's a little ridiculous. But then afterwards he does end up spilling. And here we learn that they've tied everybody up, and the Star-Spangled Kid puts a sticker on all the bad guys' foreheads when they're done tying them up. And they get into the car. with
Yes.
this bad guy, and they let him drive them to the bad guy's lair. And of course, the bad guy decides to drive the car off the cliff and bails out of the car at the last minute as to dispose of the two heroes, which is ridiculous.
Which is crazy. Which is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But of course, they end up surviving and grabbing onto a nearby tree branch. And they catch up with him or whatever, and they beat him up. And he's like, they're just in that castle. They're just in the castle up ahead. So then the bad guys are there waiting for them, and they, of course, are attacked by a giant spiky mechanical wheel. And hijinks ensues. Star-Spangled Kid ends up crawling inside and is able to stop the people that are driving it by throwing in a gas pellet or whatever, and he's able to stop this thing before it kills S.T.R.I.P.E. But they use this thing to break into the castle, and they start walking through the castle, and one of the henchmen is like looking through a little doorway or something and decides to spring a trap door. And luckily, S.T.R.I.P.E. is able to grab onto the ledge, and Star-Spangled Kid climbs up, and they're kind of like up against the wall on the tiny little piece of flooring that's still there. And a guy opens up a door on the other side of this pit and decides he's going to just off them there. And Star-Spangled Kid leaps over this pit and is able to stop this guy. And after they start beating him up a little bit, he pulls a lever, dropping like rubble and rocks. And I guess I can't remember actually what happens here. Maybe they also fall down the cliff again. Now that I'm thinking about it, yeah, and they have to like jump into the water or whatever.
Yeah,
it's really kind of strange how everything unfolds, but they decide to head back home. So they go into their.
Well, yeah, this is where we're introduced to the, what is it called?
The rocket car.
The rocket car.
It's pretty cool.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah,
car. Cool.
Yeah. Even the way that they describe how it transforms back and forth between the rocket car and their normal like Cadillac or whatever they call it.
And we should also point out that this is before Transformers, so they didn't know how to depict that. So it just shows like a bunch of smoke kind of swirling around, or is it the metal swirling around? It's kind of hard to tell. But it's different. It's not what you think. It's more like it's almost like a wispy type movement when it's moving around. It's weird, but it's cool.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to say that this is like a very interesting, I guess you could say, twist in their origin, because usually we're introduced to the characters first. They decide to become superheroes, then we get their costume, then we whatever. This is reversed, where we're introduced to the characters first. Then in a twist, we find out that Star-Spangled Kid is an ultra-rich like teenager named Sylvester Pemberton, and S.T.R.I.P.E. is his driver, his chauffeur. So that's basically their secret identities. And then we get back to their house and we meet the parents. I don't know, it's a pretty cool thing. And then
it's a nice kind of twist on the idea of secret identity.
Right. And then we basically we cut back, and what happens here? Oh, so then they
sneak out.
Town. Yeah.
Yeah. And they drive their car, and they come up with this plan where if they pretend to break down in front of the bad guys' headquarters, they will kidnap them. Excuse me, sorry. And that's how they're gonna get into the bad guys' headquarters, is just to be captured. And then while in there, they will turn into their superhero identities. So we get the like main bad guy. He confesses that he's the real head of the society down here, and that's when Star-Spangled Kid shows up. He blows his little whistle, and S.T.R.I.P.E. shows up, and they all start kind of like beating up these bad guys. And the head honcho ends up running away. Star-Spangled Kid runs after him, but he's able to actually overtake him and almost knock him out. That's when S.T.R.I.P.E. shows up and saves him right before he ends up getting crushed by a rock. And they slap some stickers on the bad guys and call it a day. That's kind of
The end.
the end
Yeah.
here. Yeah.
So here's the thing. I pointed out this was written by Jerry Siegel,
Mm-hmm.
and it was drawn by Hal Sherman. And this art style is wonky, as we mentioned earlier, but actually I
Mm-hmm.
kind of liked it. What did you think of it, the art style?
It's very inconsistent, but it does have this weird charm to it. I don't know if
Yeah,
I love it, but it is interesting to look at. Like, I think for this one issue, I enjoyed it, but I feel like it would get very old if I were to
sure.
continue this series. Like, if it's an ongoing thing.
Well, here's the thing. I know that after he created Superman and they were completely effed over by DC Comics, Jerry Siegel did try to follow up with a character named Funny Man, which unfortunately did not catch on. But he did have a knack for writing comedy, and obviously he tries to use that here. It's kind of goofy, and I kind of appreciate that. Like, of course, the weird, frightening close-ups of Stripesy are supposed to be funny, but they're scary at the same time. But like you said, the art I guess is consistent, but the artist Hal Sherman definitely has an understanding of like layout and like there's some nice panels in here, like
Hmm.
especially when the car is like driving off the ledge and
Oh
like we
yeah, here,
see the
let's
guy
see.
jump out. That's a great sequence. And then he's looking back over his shoulder and they're hanging from the branch and like the moonlight is lighting up the
Right.
branches. Like that's pretty cool. Again, we have to make different allowances, I think, for Golden Age art because it's so radically different. But in that respect or under those parameters, it's good. Even like the scene when they first see the what's it called, the castle. That's a nice
Oh
shot.
yeah,
They're looking
here.
at the castle on
Yeah.
page 8, original page 8. Like there's some cool scenes in here. Like again, this artist probably developed after this story, but I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
The secret identity twist is pretty cool. I guess the only problem is that there's so many other superheroes at this point that just again had no superpowers. They were just good at hand-to-hand combat. I don't know if I could go on to read 100 more issues of this, but from what I read, I thought it was pretty entertaining. What did you think?
Yeah, it was all right. I don't know if I love the characters so far, just in the introduction. I feel like the comedy would get old with Stripesy. Like I'm
Hmm.
not sure how long that would last for me, of like me being able to read through issues of that.
Sure.
Um, and also the fact that they don't have powers. And both of them don't have powers.
Hmm.
Kind of also is like, I don't know why exactly is this like little kid involved in it. It's
Right, right, right.
but it was a fun issue. I can see there being good stories within this, but
Mhm.
I'm not too sure I'm like fully sold with just this issue.
Sure, gotcha, gotcha. Well, maybe you had the right idea because, as I said, this character kind of disappeared after the Golden Age, and didn't come back until the 70s. Like I said, he actually changed identities. So another pet peeve of mine, he
Hmm.
changed his name to Skyman, which I think is actually a pretty cool name. But he became Skyman in when he was in Infinity Incorporated,
Hmm.
and then kind of disappeared, like I said earlier, and then eventually his sort of his name and his the powers that he borrowed from Starman were passed on to Stargirl, who we're going to talk about next. And for those that don't know, if you'd like to Google Comic Book Syndicate plus Geoff Johns, you'll see an interview I did with him where I
Oh, awesome.
believe he briefly talks about Stargirl. I think maybe I shouldn't be plugging that interview, but anyway, so Stargirl was actually based on his sister, Courtney.
Hmm.
Yeah, Courtney, who unfortunately she actually died in a car in a plane explosion in
Oh my god.
1996. Horrible, horrible true story. They killed how many
Oof.
people? Like 200, like a lot of people. It's horrible. Yeah. So anyway, that is so her personality is based on his real sister. But anyway,
That makes sense, and it kind of like jumping ahead a little bit. That would also make sense as to why I feel like this reads very much like a real person. Like the dialogue works for me.
Sure.
She feels like an actual kid, and how a kid, especially during like the late 90s, early 2000s, would be acting.
Sure.
So that would make sense as to why it's like so believable. I think this character. But yeah, I guess we'll just jump in and start doing
Sure.
a quick recap. So we see Stargirl here, or this, kicking butt in the Star-Spangled Kid style.
Right.
There's these kind of like goons with these serpent-looking logos on their uniforms, and she's fighting some crime at the school, and this gigantic robot bursts through the side of the building as one of these guys grabs hold of Stargirl, and we are kind of flashing back now to how she got into this mess in the first place. It turns out that she's moving to this town. It's like a country town. I can't remember. It is an established DC town.
Yeah, they mention it.
They
Oh,
do
what
mention it
it's
now,
like
of
Civic
course.
City or something like that. I can't remember
Something
what it
like
is.
that.
Is it Blue Valley? Blue Valley, right? That's what's on the sign.
That must be it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
So she's moving here with her mother and new stepdad, and she's not too thrilled about leaving her town in LA, I think, or somewhere in California. And she's kind of like adjusting to having this new life with her new stepfather. And we cut over to the school as we're kind of introduced to Blue Valley, and the sewer grate opens up, and this green hand comes up and pulls a couple of kids down into the sewer. The next day, it is Courtney's first day, and she sticks up for this one girl that's being bullied by this guy, asking her for some lunch money. She kicks him right into the face, and just as that happens, the principal shows up, and of course, she gets into some trouble. He has to escort her straight to her first class, and that's where she's kind of like has her first day introductions with like her homeroom teacher, and then we see her at the cafeteria, and then again she's kind of like tripped, and she bumps into the same principal and has to go to the principal's office, and he kind of scolds her about having to write a paper about getting tomato sauce out of a t-shirt, whatever. And the real kind of interesting thing in this scene happens after she leaves. He's kind of like stuttering a little bit, and he's adjusting himself, and to calm his nerves, he opens up a drawer and opens up a can of oil and pops it open and starts drinking.
Like car oil.
Right, yeah, like motor oil
Yeah.
or something, yeah.
Motor oil, yeah.
And so she heads back home. Her mom is still at work, but her stepdad is there, and he's kind of like, hey, I got a call from your principal. I heard something weird's going on. And she's like, I really don't want to talk about this anymore. Like, I'm going to unpack. She goes to her room, and one of the movers accidentally threw one of Pat, her stepfather's boxes, into her bedroom. So she starts to unpack it, and she puts two and two together that he was the old Stripe-C. So he sees the costume there. It's the Star-Spangled Kid's costume, Stripe-C's costume, and she's like reading through these newspapers and like discovering his past. So she has the bright idea to blackmail him into not saying anything to her mom. I think that's brilliant to kind of, instead of like this like huge revelation of like, whoa, you're a superhero, she's like, no, that's it. You know what? I'm gonna use this against you. So yeah, she's kind of like, don't tell mom, or I'm gonna tell her that you're the superhero guy. So we cut over to later that night. There's a dance, and she shows up in the Star-Spangled Kid's costume, kind of like redone to suit her, and her stepdad shows up and kind of starts scolding her. And at that time, a big explosion happens at in the floor of this gym, and these goons again, they start to kind of crawl out of this hole, and she starts just kind of like automatically fighting crime. She's not really sure what's gotten into her, but she's able to just start beating these guys up. And after one of them is kind of knocked out, she pulls the mask off, and it's revealed that it's one of the kids that was dragged into the sewers from earlier on. And as this happens, this giant robot bursts through the wall, and this is kind of where we're catching up from the beginning of the comic. Yeah, they're kind of just teaming up with each other. They defeat these two goons, and the robot kind of marches off afterwards. She chases after him, and a bunch more of these bad guys show up, and they're kind of like all surrounded, and we're left with a little bit of a cliffhanger. But she's trying to figure out who this person is controlling this robot, or what this whole deal is. But yeah, it's a pretty good introduction, in my opinion, to a brand new character. Again, like I was saying before, I really do believe this character. I think the dialogue is really smart. All of the things kind of happening have a reason to happen. Like,
sure,
her being bullied and then like being sent to the principal's office has a point. Her finding the costume and the way that she uses it to like blackmail her stepdad. Like, I think a lot of it is really clever, and not just like check boxes for like teen comedy, set in high school or whatever. So yeah, I really enjoyed this one.
Yeah, I'm slightly on the fence. I think it's the second time I've read this series or this issue, and I definitely enjoy it. At first I didn't like the art, but now that I'm looking at it again, I actually do like it, and I wonder if it's just the inking I don't quite like. But the pencils are actually pretty fresh and bouncy, and like, this is 1999. This is kind of, there was some bad art in the 90s, but this is sort of the more I don't want to say it's more for a younger audience, but there was like a movement of this type of art, like Mike Parobeck and stuff like that, and like the Batman Adventures comic, that was appealing to a different demographic. And I do definitely appreciate what they're going for, and I can feel a little bit of Buffy the Vampire influence, right? With her just being in high school, and like the things in the sewers and the robots. Like, I just love that stuff. Like, it's very light. Jeff Johns is always solid, and this character is close to his heart. I think that comes through in the issue. So I can definitely understand why she's kind of always been sort of, not with a cult popularity, but she's always been around. Now she's got her own TV show, which I haven't seen. But I think he got something right with this character. So yeah, I think it's a pretty cool issue, and it definitely makes me interested to read more Stargirl for sure.
For sure, yeah. I definitely will be checking out more after this, for sure.
Yeah, and the robot sidekick's another cool like Silver Age idea, right? Like, this teenage girl with a robot sidekick. That's a great idea.
That's great, and I think it's also a nice twist on kind of like a rehash of the original team, right? So instead of having this like bumbling driver or whatever that kind of has the same running jokes, we have now like a giant robot that presumably is her principal, I'm assuming, from like the oil thing, or somehow connected, and gonna have kind of like those types of issues where it's like the robot rather than just like an idiot for like, dumb jokes or whatever.
Sure.
I'm sure that there's going to be some sort of like, running out of batteries, and we kind of even see that a little bit here already. So
there's definitely more story possibilities with a robot sidekick like this, right? Yeah, definitely. So yeah, she is called Star-Spangled Kid in this issue, but then she becomes Stargirl later on. I'm not sure exactly where. Maybe it's in JSA. I'm not sure. But anyway, the point is that she does become Stargirl. And yeah, so cool issue. Actually, I really like her costume too.
Yeah, it's good. It is a nice kind of twist. Once again, it's like It feels like she designed it herself, and it is doable, especially because she had already the previous hero's costume. So you
Right.
kind of have those elements, and then it's kind of made into its own. I really
Oh,
like it.
I should also point out the robot is in fact Pat Dugan. It is Stripe-E, so
Wait. It's the actual person?
yeah, it's Pat Dugan. It's her stepfather. It's not the principal.
Oh, okay, really?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay. I had assumed that it was. Maybe I missed that. Oh,
You
I
thought
guess
it
he
was the
does run
principal?
away. Right. Yeah, you can kind of see him in the background here,
Huh.
running away. Okay.
Yeah, so it's pretty cool. I don't know.
Yeah.
Again, like it makes me more interested in reading more. Like, and again, not like this is not a masterpiece, but just the little clues that are kind of laid down throughout the issue to kind of keep you sucked in, like the hand coming out of the sewer and the principal drinking the oil. That's a nice little clever way to get people hooked. I like it, you
Mm-hmm.
know?
Yeah.
So definitely a cool character. And again, I as a rule actually don't like legacy characters, but this is definitely one of the better ones. That's why we're doing this podcast, because I don't like legacy characters. Anyway, so so we didn't get to talk about Skyman. He did become Skyman in Infinity Incorporated, but I didn't want to subject you to any more Roy Thomas writing. So, but cool name, cool costume.
Yeah.
See Stripesy there. Possibly the worst superhero name ever. I don't know.
Right. Like I don't.
Stripesy?
He's got a striped shirt on, I guess. Like it's not
Yeah.
even a costume, really. I actually the only thing that does make it a costume is that he's wearing his underwear on the outside. Like it just looks like if you took the
shirt?
outside underwear off, he could just be a guy walking down the street.
That's well, although it is unusual to see a guy wearing a shirt like that. But yeah, I get your point.
Sure,
Yeah.
I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But yeah, I mean, they basically took the American flag and split it into two, right? He got the stripes, and Star-Spangled Kid got the
Got
stars.
the stars, right?
So, yeah, well, there you go. So another Golden Age superhero down. Actually, the second incarnation is now fairly famous. So, have you seen Stargo yet?
I've seen bits and parts of it, but I've not sat down and watched the entire series yet. I want to though, because I've heard pretty good things about it. Like I've heard it's fun.
I might have to. And
Yeah.
I didn't realize that she has already been portrayed like 4 times in live action. Like apparently she was in Smallville. She was in Legends of Tomorrow. She was on.
Oh, I didn't realize she was in like the Flash verse. Because
Yeah, the
I
Arrowverse.
I
Yeah.
assumed that Stargirl was connected to Arrowverse somehow.
Well, actually, it's a different actor now, so I don't even know if it's the
Oh.
same continuity. It's so weird. Just like, do you remember when Supergirl first started? It was on a different. Granted, it was on a different station.
Right.
It was not. There was no connection continuity-wise.
Right.
Flash and Arrow, and then Black Lightning came along, and that was not connected. Like DC, that's a whole other issue. But they've done so many things wrong, in my opinion. But that's a whole other episode.
But Supergirl is now connected though.
Now it's connected,
Right.
And I don't remember if they explained it through like a
Multiverse
crisis
thing.
type
Right.
thing. I'm not sure if they did how they did that, but yeah, it is connected. Yeah. So anyway, so I guess that wraps up this episode of
Yeah.
Slam. Hopefully we all learned a lot more about Star-Spangled Kid and Stargirl. We're going to be doing more Golden Age and Legacy superheroes coming up soon. Next week, we're going to be covering Superman Part 3. He's got more origins than a mofo, and we're going to be talking about 3 of them. So yeah, and Adam Palche should be joining us next week, so that's
That's exciting.
Yeah, also be sure to check out Tape Crusaders. Our next episode will be, I don't know what order, because we went out of order with Tape Crusaders.
Right. And
We'll
by the time this airs, I'm trying to remember what would even be out right now.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe we should just keep it a secret, but just keep
Yeah.
watching, because we definitely have, we're getting to around 1988, 1989, and you know what that means. So
Yeah, it's
definitely
exciting.
keep listening, keep watching. And I guess that's it. And Josh, you can take it from here.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for listening to the podcast. You can find all of our stuff over on our website at thecomicbooksyndicate.com. You can find all of our stuff on our YouTube channel as well. So start watching our video podcasts. Leave us a review, leave us a comment, let us know what you guys think about the stuff that we're talking about, the comics, the movies, the shows, the awful pilots that were canceled after that, everything we're talking about. Let us know what you guys think, and let's keep that comics conversation going.
That's right. So until the next time, see you later.